One of my favorite parts of Ruby, Sapphire, and especially Emerald are the interactions you get between the player and the gimmicky villain teams, Team Aqua and Team Magma, so I'm glad those teams get some fun representation in the TCG as well. Today we are talking about Team Aqua.deck. The deck is appropriately centered around Team Aqua's Kyogre and its 1-2 punch of attacks. For 2 energy, you deal 10 damage and get a guaranteed special condition off of it, and the next turn for 3 energy, you deal 50 damage, plus 20 more if the opponent is affected by a special condition. That extra 20 is pretty easy to wiggle out of, but it can put your opponent on the back foot pretty quickly, especially if on turn 2 you skip the Aqua trip altogether and go straight for an Aqua Smash, which is actually pretty easy to pull off consistently with the insane engine that this deck has built in. With components like Archie that just lets you search your deck for a Team Aqua Pokemon and put it on your bench. Doesn't have to be basic, you can just go grab a Stage 1 or a Stage 2 Pokemon and slap it onto your bench. You also have Team Aqua Conspirator that lets you go grab any combination of 2 basic energy cards and basic Pokemon that have Aqua in their name, so it's a little versatile in what you can actually grab with this one. And then you have Team Aqua Ball, which is just a basic trainer, so you can just dump 4 of these in the same turn, flip a coin if heads, search your deck for any Pokemon that has Team Aqua in its name. If tails, search your deck for a basic Pokemon that has Team Aqua in its name. So either way, you're getting a Pokemon. It's just the level of effectiveness does vary here. With this kind of support, you can get into some real shenanigans, and I've not even talked about the support Pokemon yet, so let's do that now. Let's get into the deck list. We're going to be looking at 18 Pokemon here, starting with 3 copies of Team Aqua's Chinchou. Now this Pokemon exists in this deck purely to evolve up into Team Aqua's Lantern. Team Aqua's Lantern has the Pokepower Auxiliary Light. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic energy card from your hand to this Lantern. When you do, put 2 damage counters on it. That doesn't seem too great, considering that you're really just building up to only 1 available attack, which is Lightning Ball. 50 damage for 3 energy is not bad, especially since you can accelerate into it and use this attack on turn 2. It's especially good if you are up against something that has lightning weakness, but 2 damage counters on an 80 HP Pokemon is a bit of downside. We're normally not going to be attacking with Lantern. This is just going to be a bench Pokemon. More on that in a bit. Next up, we have 3 copies of Team Aqua's Electrike. Again, exists in this deck purely to evolve up into Team Aqua's Manectric, which has the Power Shift power. Once during your turn, you may move any number of basic energy cards attached to one of your Pokemon with Team Aqua in its name to another one of your Pokemon. You probably see where we're going here. You're going to use Lantern to accelerate energy onto the field, and then you're going to use Team Aqua's Manectric to move those energy over to your big attacker, which in this deck, it's pretty obvious it's going to be Team Aqua's Kyogre. So we'll go ahead and talk about Kyogre while we're down here. It's a 100 HP basic. It's going to be hard to knock out. It can deal 50 to 70 damage consistently on turn 2, thanks to the support you're getting from Lantern and Manectric, which are pretty easy to get into play. You're going to be able to consistently fill your bench with Team Aqua Pokemon, which is also going to come in handy since Team Aqua's Kyogre has the Power Saver body. You have to have at least 3 Team Aqua Pokemon in play before Kyogre can even attack. Again, that's not hard to do with all of the search and draw support that this deck offers. The sore thumb that's probably sticking out to you is Team Aqua's Cacturne, since there's no Team Aqua's Cacnea in this deck. You have to remember, with that Archie supporter card, you're able to grab any Team Aqua Pokemon out of your deck and put it onto your bench. Doesn't matter if it's basic, Stage 1, Stage 2. Stage 2 does have a downside, but there is no downside for grabbing a Stage 1. And you'll hear me say over and over again as we talk about the 2004 format, the majority of big decks are weak to grass. So why not put a Stage 1 grass type attacker in this deck that you can flash into play with Archie, get it into the active position, move all the energy you need onto the Cacturne, and then hit for 80 damage with Poison Barb, 90 damage after you account for the auto poison. So it's just in here as a bit of a sneaky cactus for mid to late game to kind of catch your opponent off guard. They may be able to adjust to the high damage output of Team Aqua's Kyogre, but they're not going to be ready for a surprise Cacturne. So let's go ahead and get into the trainer support for this Team Aqua deck. Got pretty simple draw support here, starting with 3 copies of Copycat. That's going to be sometimes dependent on your opponent's hand size, but Copycat can pretty reliably just draw you a bunch of cards. On top of that, we're going to have Professor Oak's Research. We've got 4 copies of Oak's Research here just because it's the more consistent option to me for just drawing cards and getting what you need. I just feel like for this deck, Oak's Research is a better fit on where you're going heavy on your draw support. On top of that, we got 2 copies of Mr. Briney's Compassion. Now, this is more for when a lot of damage has been loaded onto your Team Aqua's Kyogre. You can just move the energy off with Manectric and then just Team Brine it back to your hand and then play it again. It's a Pokemon Center basically. It's free healing for your Pokemon. The only issue there is that when you play the Kyogre back onto your bench, you're not able to immediately move those energy back onto it, so you kind of lose a turn there, but you're also depriving your opponent of an easy prize. Now we get into the really good Team Aqua support. We've got 4 copies of Archie in here, which is just going to let you search for whatever Team Aqua Pokemon you need for your setup, whether it's a Lantern, a Manectric, a Cacturne, a Kyogre. You're going to be able to put it directly onto your bench. Sometimes just grabbing that Manectric from your deck, slapping it on the bench, moving an energy over, like that's going to be enough to get off a turn 2 huge attack from Team Aqua's Kyogre. It's as easy as that, and Archie is powerful enough to let you do that. On top of that, we got the Conspirators that are just going to help you get your more mid to late game setup where you're actually going to be evolving an Electrike into a Manectric. You're going to be evolving a Chinchou into a Lantern. Team Aqua Conspirator is going to let you search out those basic Pokemon, usually when you already have the evolved forms in your hand, but it's also going to let you grab energy you need. There's a few different types of energy in this deck, and you want to make sure you're playing the right ones onto the field using Lantern's ability, but also just your energy per turn from hand. So Conspirator is going to let you grab whatever specific energy you need out of this deck, which can come in pretty clutch when you want to play that Lantern next turn, but you don't quite have the grass energy to drop and get its attack going. Team Aqua's Conspirator has got you when it comes to just grabbing more and more Pokemon for copies of Team Aqua Ball. Like I said in the intro, it is a basic trainer card. You can just drop 4 of these on your first turn and just grab everything you want for your setup. As easy as that. For the 2004 format, this engine is incredibly powerful. It just lets you go grab all the pieces you need from your deck when you need them. The other part of this deck is going to come from actually getting your main attacking Pokemon into the active position, or otherwise getting your attacking Pokemon out of the active position whenever they're affected by special conditions. Warp Point's going to do that. Good thing about this deck is when you're using Warp Point, it almost doesn't matter what benched Pokemon you're moving into the active, because you have Manectric as backup to move energy over and attack with no matter what's going into the active position, whether it is a Manectric, a Lantern, or a Kyogre. For this build, I actually put in 3 Darkness Energy just because they play as plus powers that stick around. There's a lot of times where you're just 10 damage off from getting a KO, and you don't want to miss those opportunities. So the Darkness Energy actually comes in pretty handy. That's why I have 3 copies in here. Every single Pokemon in this deck, or every evolved Pokemon in this deck, can utilize the special Darkness Energy and get that little bit of extra damage when they attack. Aside from those, I've just got 3 Grass Energy for your Cacturnes, 4 Lightning Energy for your Manectrics and Lanterns, and then 8 Water Energy for your Kyogre. Team Aqua's Conspirator really just streamlines this deck and makes it so it doesn't matter that you have 4 different types of energy. It can't grab the Darkness Energy, you're going to have to draw into those, but everything else that's necessary to just get attacks off is very easy to grab out of the deck. Setup is so simple with this deck. Even if you don't have a powerful, hard-hitting EX Pokemon to lead with, Team Aqua's Kyogre is good enough just because of the speed at which you can get it into play fully powered and hitting your opponent for high damage. This deck does slow down considerably if you're not able to get Manectric into play fast enough. It is kind of the core engine of this deck. You can accelerate as many energy into play as you want with Lantern, but if you're not able to move them over to the appropriate attackers, then you're not really optimized to keep tempo with your opponent. One of the biggest strengths of this deck is the fact that it is so fast in its setup. That Team Aqua supporter engine is amazing for just getting the cards that you need, getting them into play, and then just letting the deck do what it does best. Because of its speed and the tankiness of Team Aqua's Kyogre, this deck has some very favorable matchups with most of the format, especially Gorbis. That one is key, especially if you can drop that surprise Cacturne and just straight out OHKO your opponent's Gorbis, you are instantly putting them in defense mode. Some builds do run a couple copies of Crystal Shard to help you get around those key resistances that your opponent may have, so if you're running into those, I would recommend making some room for a couple of Crystal Shards. If you're getting into a lot of prolonged matchups where you're losing Pokemon and you're needing to recycle them from your discard, as well as energy cards, then I would also recommend including at least one copy of Town Volunteers, if not two, depending on how badly you need to recycle resources in the late game. The types of matchups where Kyogre does struggle is against Pokemon that just outbulk it. So Swampert EX is a key example where it's got 150 HP. Kyogre is going to take at least a few turns to knock this thing out. In the meantime, Swampert EX is going to be able to outgun it in damage output. And even if you trick play a Cacturne into play and hit Swampert for weakness, you're still not getting an OHKO. Kyogre can also face a challenge in its rival, Team Magma's Groudon, which fits perfectly. Team Magma has the same set of streamlined supporters and trainers that can help get Team Magma's Groudon and all of its support into play super fast and hit for high damage. A lot of times these matchups do come down to who can get a grass type Pokemon into play with a darkness energy attached to it faster than the other person so that they can start OHKOing their opponent. It really breaks down to this fun back and forth, which the name of the set is Team Aqua versus Team Magma, so that's the way it should be. That's going to be all on the Team Aqua deck for today. As always, let me know down in the comments what you thought about this deck. Let me know what additions you would make or different playstyles that you would utilize for a Team Aqua deck. Stay tuned for plenty more vintage Pokemon TCG content coming to this channel. Like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube stuff. It really goes a long way. I appreciate you watching this far. Have a good one. I'll see you next video.